once we get this in place, is there anything in this, in these plans to, for metrics in order to identify how the traffic does change in terms, and I don't mean just cars, I mean, how many bicycles, how many more cyclists have we attracted? How many more pedestrians have we attracted? And so that however this works out, we have numbers to apply to D Street or to 6th Street or to wherever else, how this works in terms of traffic counts. Is that something that's in our budget for this, to deal with those metrics?
Yeah, I think that's a fairly easy thing to accomplish. I mean, we do traffic counting on a consistent basis every year. We do the vehicular counts. We did a specific vehicular count on the corridor back in, I think it was October this year, to help inform this process. What's the current count as of a few months ago? That included speed assessments at those select locations within the corridor. So we can replicate that counting process for the vehicles for both volume and speed into the future. What we don't really have at this point is a pedestrian and bicycle counts, but I think we probably have the opportunity this spring to gather some of that type of information before anything else has changed out there, and then we can use that as kind of that benchmark moving forward to then continue to do those assessments later on. I should clarify one comment that was made earlier this evening in the testimony about the counts that were done in front of the high school. Those were a snapshot at that point back in October. That was after those bike lanes were installed, but there was not a comparison made to speeds at other times. So it's a high speed at that time, at that location, and it was after those bike lanes were installed, but we have not done any research to determine was there a change from something prior to that painting to after that painting. It was a snapshot just at that moment. But yes, the short answer for your question, Jim, is that I think there are ways to do a metric and do the field data collection in terms of vehicular speed, volume, pedestrian usage, bicycle usage within the corridor.
Yeah, I think that's essential to know whether this is whether we've made the right decision. Did we attract enough more cyclists to make this worthwhile to add to another street? Or is it just a feel-good thing that doesn't really work? And, I'm pretty sure that it will work, but it would be great to have some data to back that up.
Well, and there are other elements of the overall bike network that are still going in. We've talked about that for a while now, but as time allows with our busy street crew, we are adding more and more facilities across the community. As those connections are made and all the infrastructure is installed, we're anticipating seeing an uptick in ridership as well. So this will go right along with that.
As well as the underpass.
That too.
Will be completed this year as well. That will be another.
White Avenue.
Art, you had I just wanted to make another comment about pedestrian traffic. With all of these plans, and Plan C included, there's also the ability to complete the sidewalk network on the 3rd Street corridor to enhance pedestrian safety and access, and we haven't talked about that hardly at all, but that's always an ongoing topic with this community, is to complete the sidewalks around here. And here is a perfectly fine opportunity to do 1,000 more feet of sidewalks in the city and connect all the way from downtown all the way through to Mountain View with completed sidewalks. And I think that's really important for pedestrians and people with wheelchairs, motorized or otherwise.
Well done.
Well, I just have to talk a little more. So I agree with the mayor about the opportunities to be innovative and do something different. And I think that's what a lot of us are attracted to with Plan C. I would also just encourage everyone to think about that extension with the bridge too. I mean, the multimodal bridge is a pretty standard, typical thing. And I know that that's in the budget and that's the way that we're proceeding. But it's not too late to have a discussion. We're only halfway into the design process, what we budgeted for that. And so I just wanted to respond to that. And also to acknowledge what, I don't think he's here anymore, but what Garrett said. you know, I think it is important for everyone in our community to be able to work together and make this be something that, you know, we can feel good about. And that would be another reason why I would encourage us to consider an opportunity for that public input. Even if the outcome doesn't change, I think there will be a much different feeling from the public, the good feeling that they have tonight from being included.
All right. I guess I move. Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to move that we accept the Plan C for the Third Street corridor and for staff to proceed with the improvements in that project.
I will second that.
Might I suggest an amendment to include a consultant's
Yes.
review on this in
Yes.
terms of the safety of the bi-directional bike lanes, the entry and exit to those bike lanes, cross-street traffic, and also seek some input from city staff as well on not only those issues, but the potential cost of maintenance.
Did you get that? Okay, let's read through this, because that was
Come on, Lori.
so we've
But
got
I
a
think-
motion to approve Plan C with
With a
consultant
consultant review
comma,
Comma.
Right, but we were directing staff already, so it's implied that they're going to be doing the work to look at maintenance and the improvements or the things that are necessary. So there's
But the
just,
consultant's going
the
to,
consultant's the second thing.
yeah.
and that's okay.
So I can recite again if you want.
Reader looks like he's got something going.
Gary, you got something you
Should be
want to say? You're busting at the seams here.
Not particularly, but, so the original motion was to approve Plan C and direct staff to move ahead with implementation of the plan. Your request for amendment was to include the services of a consultant to review it and provide feedback, and to also do an estimate of the impacts on maintenance by city staff because of Plan C. You can do that without an amendment if the maker of the motion and the seconder would approve of it. You don't have to go through the whole motion for amendment process.
I approve.
Me too.
Second. Further discussion? Randy?
When, Jim, your comment about some data, could there be something about the parking too, the impacts of the parking? Where do those, I'm not sure what that would be. Particularly that between Blaine and Hayes, you know, I have gone by there and done some counts myself, and I'm wondering where they end up, and if we want to be able to take a look at that and see how that is working out. I think is another way of evaluating the success of this.
Yeah,
That's just another metric. You know,
Yeah.
how does
It
this
is.
work
It's a
out
good
in
one.
terms of
Right.
parking? Does it create a bunch of problems? But I think this is something that the consultant would be included in the consultant's work.
Not necessarily on that end of it. I mean, really, would be looking at how do we implement and do it effectively. As far as the performance metrics, if you will, we could certainly add to that a parking component. I think that's a good idea, to look at, again, this spring, but while school's still on, what the parking usage is today on the street and on the side streets, maybe a block out or something like that. And then afterwards, go back and look at that again to see how it's changed. And then we'll probably also have to look a little bit at private parking, because there's a lot of private lots in those multifamily zones, to see if maybe that takes up some of it. So I think that's possible to do that as well, just as part of that assessment process into the future.
Okay, I'll remind councilors, we got a motion and a second on the table here, so do we have further discussion on the motion before I ask for a roll?
Can I just clarify? I want to make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So the motion is Plan C sort of contingent on the findings or the recommendations of the consultant, and that we, no, okay?
I didn't take it as contingent.
Gary, you want to restate that?
Yeah, my understanding was the motion was made to approve Plan C and move toward implementation while retaining the services of a consultant to provide feedback and recommendations for implementation.
So we're not really making a space for if the consultant says,
The motion would
Advises
have to
us against it.
clarify that, because that was not
My
implicit in
motion
the
is just
motion.
to proceed.
so regardless of what the consultant says, that's what we're saying, we're going to go with it.
Yeah.
If I may, I would suggest that, you know, if for some reason the consultant cannot help us get there, that we would come back and report that to the council.
Right.
To say that, yeah, we
It's like
just-
the first
we
step.
couldn't find a way, and so therefore we need to think about alternatives.
Gary?
But that, again, I think it's something that, you know, the plan is to proceed with how do we implement.
That would be the hope.
Gary, you had.
I think Les makes a great point. As council gives direction to staff, staff assesses, uses the resources that you provide us. We bring those, if something is unexpected, something does not work, I think our track record has been very good in coming back to council and saying, look, it looked good on paper, it doesn't look good in implementation, we need to rethink this. My suspicion is, based upon both the practical implications of what staff will be doing, the recommendations of the consultant, if there's anything that comes up, it will be coming back to you again.
Jim?
So the motion is to proceed with option C. What I see here is that we have like about seven common elements that we could continue with regardless of the outcome of the consultant's report. So the consultant's report has primarily to do with the two-way separated bike lane. So we could amend the motion, I suppose, to say go ahead with the common elements, and that the completion of the bike lane would have to do with what results we get from the consultant.
Again, if I may, I think what the motion is satisfactory, because you're telling us to proceed. And
So you can put the-
we will proceed as we do with the elements that we can start right away. We'll proceed
25
with
mile an hour
those.
speed limit,
And
four-way
for
stop
the other
signs.
thing, for the study, we'll proceed with that, and they'll run concurrent with each other. Because for the other elements, I've got to get it through a design process, right? The actual striping and the bike lane aspect of it is very easy in terms of time to catch up, based on what comes out of the study itself. But yeah, we'll go ahead and proceed with all the design of the rest of it, so that it can be on the same bid schedules into the spring. So we'll just manage that time like we would any other project.
Okay, so you're under the assumption that the common elements are implied in the motion, and we can proceed with those.
That's part of,
Right.
right.
Yep, okay. Well, okay, I'll start the roll with Ann.
Aye.
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 All right.
Aye.
Okay, we will move forward with that as directed. I want to say special thanks to all this subcommittee folks, Ben Calabretta, Philip Cook, I seen Phil back there, Brian Johnson, Becker Goosh, Amy Ball, Marshall Comstock, Dan Karscalen, Mike Lowry, thank you so very much. Comments from Mike Kite as well, Catherine Bonzo, Les McDonald for the work that you guys did up here. I was here both January 11th and January the 18th, and I talked to hundreds of people about this, and as well as the Transportation Commission. And I've got a gut feeling, ladies and gentlemen, that this is going to turn out really well. It's going to be something we're going to look at down the road and say this is a good thing for us. And I think it's going to be an envy of a lot of different cities in this state. That's just my own perspective, folks. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Let's go.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 9.